You can be doing everything right with money and still feel anxious every time you spend it. You can save, budget, work hard, earn more, and still have your body react like something is wrong every time money leaves your account. So here's an example. Two people can have the exact same financial goal, make the same amount of money, and even take very similar actions with their money and still have completely different experiences of wealth. One person gets paid and immediately thinks, okay, what bills are coming out? What if something happens? Maybe I shouldn't have spent this. And there's this subtle urgency underneath everything that they do. The other person gets paid, pays those same bills, saves some money, spends some money, and moves through the whole experience with clarity and gratitude and peace and intention. And they could literally have the same number sitting in their bank accounts, but internally, they are having two completely different experiences. And this is something I started becoming really fascinated by because I realized you can technically manifest more money without ever even like feeling more abundant. So if the quality of the internal experience stays the same, you can make $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000 and somehow still recreate the feeling of, is this enough? And I think this is especially interesting for people who are like high achievers because we are really good at focusing on the number. We say, when I make this much, then I'll relax. Or when I have this much saved, then I'll finally feel secure. So we keep chasing a quantity of money, believing it will automatically create a different quality of life. But what if the number changes and the person experiencing the number doesn't? You can make more money and immediately increase your spending and increase your responsibilities, increase your standards, or find a completely new reason why what you have still isn't enough. And now suddenly the goalpost moves again, and you're back in the exact emotional experience you thought the money was supposed to free you from. And listen, I absolutely believe in making more money and saving more money and investing and creating financial freedom. But I also think there's another part of manifestation that we don't talk about enough. The question is, what are you consistently feeling while you earn and receive and spend and manage your money? Because that emotional pattern becomes the quality of the frequency you keep bringing into your financial reality. This is what I mean when I talk about emotional quality as a frequency in the manifestation process. Your frequency is essentially the quality of what you are consistently experiencing and expressing through your thoughts, emotions, and body and actions. And I like to think about part of this as like your software and your hardware. Your mind and emotions are your software, while your body and physical reality is your hardware. And something happens in your financial reality, like maybe you get paid or you open a credit card bill or buy groceries or book a flight or transfer money into savings, and your mind immediately interprets what is happening. That interpretation creates an emotional response, and your body communicates right along with it through sensations like tightening, heaviness, buzzing, maybe expansion or relaxation, or sometimes maybe you're holding your breath. And because this can happen so quickly, most of us don't even realize there is an entire internal process occurring between I spend $200 and I feel terrible about this. And then that internal state influences what you actually do next, which is where manifestation becomes incredibly like practical to me. So, for example, like maybe your thought is money disappears so quickly and your chest tightens and you feel anxious and then you start obsessively checking your account or decide you have to work twice as hard this week. Or maybe you feel deprived for a few days and get tired of restricting yourself and then swing in the opposite direction and impulsively spend because you think, like, whatever, I deserve this. And now your thoughts are influencing your emotions. Your emotions are communicating through your body, and that entire internal experience is influencing your behavior with money. And your behavior then creates another financial result, which gives your mind new evidence for the original belief. So, for example, like C, money never stays. That is why I think of this as an operating system or a loop rather than one isolated positive or negative thought. And this is where the idea of frequency becoming form becomes really useful, because your internal quality eventually has an expression in your physical life. And I describe those expressions through four archetypical frequencies: the basic burnt out, the phoenix rising, the alchemist shapeshifting, and the collective channeling. And at the lower end, money can be experienced through survival, shame, blame, and fear. And as you move upward, you start experiencing more courage, acceptance, ownership, harmony, joy, inner wisdom, peace, and even like a deeper sense of being. And this doesn't mean you wake up one morning and become like high frequency and never feel financial fear again, because we move through different states, almost like a dial. And it means you become like more conscious of which quality of emotional frequency is currently driving your financial decisions, instead of automatically letting that state make the decision for you. And this is where accountability becomes so important, because awareness gives you the opportunity to follow through differently. And there's also a masculine and feminine expression to this. And I think money makes this incredibly like easy to see. So, for example, the masculine expression is what you actually do with money: earning it, budgeting it, paying something, saving it, negotiating, planning, investigating, or deciding not to buy something. The feminine expression is more about how you are being in relationship with money, whether you can receive it or enjoy it or feel supported by it, trust yourself with it, and remain open rather than constantly bracing for something to go wrong. And you need both, because positive thinking without financial responsibility and action doesn't like magically pay your rent or mortgage, but perfectly organized spreadsheets doesn't automatically create peace either. And your inner quality and your outer behavior are constantly like communicating with each other. And when the emotional quality changes, the same practical action can actually feel completely different. So, for example, imagine a woman who makes really good money, and from the outside, everyone would probably describe her as like financially successful, and she has a solid income, and she pays her bill, and she takes vacation, and she buys the things that she wants. And every year she tells herself that this is finally going to be the year that she feels financially secure. But every time her income increases, something interesting happens. Her lifestyle expands almost immediately. Her spending increases. And within a few months, she is emotionally right back where she started. She gets paid and feels relieved like for about 5 minutes. And then her mind immediately starts calculating everything that money needs to cover. She buys something like beautiful that she genuinely wanted, but instead of enjoying it, part of her is thinking, I probably shouldn't have spent that. So she has manifested more money, but she hasn't necessarily manifested a different experience of money. Now, imagine what is happening inside of her operating system. When she opens her banking app after spending like $600 on a weekend away, her software immediately starts producing thoughts like, that was too much. I need to make this back. I'm being irresponsible. Or what if work slows down next month? Her emotions respond with fear or guilt. Then her hardware joins in and her stomach contracts and her shoulders rise and like her chest tightens and she unconsciously starts to hold her breath. Then her behavior follows that frequency. She works longer, becomes hyper vigilant about spending, denies herself things she actually values, and eventually gets exhausted by all of the restrictions. And a few weeks later, she might swing back towards spending because she wants to finally feel free again. And then the entire loop begins again. The money is moving, but underneath all that movement is the same emotional pattern of I don't have enough. And this is why I don't think financial accountability is just about asking, did you stick to the budget? And that obviously matters, but I'm also interested in who are you while you follow the budget? Were you making conscious choices or were you punishing yourself? Did you decide not to buy something because it genuinely wasn't aligned with your priorities? Or because spending $40 activated fear in your body? Did you book the vacation because it was intentionally part of the life you were building? Or because you were trying to escape how exhausted you felt from working? So, two identical financial decisions can come from completely different internal places. And the goal isn't to judge yourself for any of these responses. It's to become aware enough that you automatically, like your automatic programming isn't quietly running your financial life. And I started noticing this in my own relationship with money when I began putting my money into different buckets. And instead of looking at everything as one giant pile of money that I was either being like good or bad with, I started giving money like different purposes. So for example, this amount goes towards rent and this amount goes towards food and this goes towards something I'm saving for. And this amount is actually there for me to enjoy. And something about doing that changed the emotional quality of spending for me because I could look at the money and think, oh, that money already has a job. And paying rent doesn't have to mean money was disappearing. It meant I was paying for the place where I get to live. And buying groceries became, this is money I intentionally created for feeding myself. So instead of another annoying amount leaving my account, I especially started noticing this with things that felt more luxurious, like travel, because luxury can bring up some really interesting programming around money. If I put money aside specifically for travel, then when it was actually time to use it, I wanted to practice letting myself experience the things I had consciously prepared for. Instead of booking something and immediately thinking OMG, look how much money I just spent, I could remind myself wait, this is literally what this money was for. And I could feel grateful that I had created the ability to go somewhere and enjoy the trip and actually receive the experience I was paying for. And for me, that is such an important distinction because I don't want financial responsibility to mean that I become afraid of using money. I want money to have structure and joy. That has also made me look at accountability differently because accountability isn't only about forcing yourself to follow rules. Sometimes accountability is keeping your word to yourself about what you said your money was for and then allowing yourself to experience that decision without immediately attacking yourself afterwards. So if I intentionally put money towards rent, I want to pay rent consciously. If I intentionally put money towards food, I want to feed myself consciously. And If I intentionally put money towards travel, I want to let myself enjoy traveling. And of course, this doesn't mean ignoring numbers or spending money you don't have in the name of being high frequency. It means making grounded financial decisions and then paying attention to the emotional quality you bring into those decisions. Because I realize I don't only want to create more money, I want to become someone who can interact with money with clarity and gratitude, responsibility, and actual enjoyment. So, okay, here's the first thing I want you to experiment with. And you don't need to change anything about your finances yet. So, the next few times you spend money, simply notice immediately after the transaction. Like maybe you pay your phone bill or order dinner or buy something completely unnecessary that you just really enjoy. And then notice the very first thought your mind produces. Is it, that was expensive, I shouldn't have done that, or I'm so grateful I can afford this, I need to make more money, or maybe there's no commentary at all. Then bring your attention into your body and notice whether something tightens or expands, like your chest or your stomach, your throat, your shoulders, jaw, or even your breathing. You are just collecting information. This is where you start seeing your software and hardware communicating in real time. And I think this is so much more useful than trying to paste a positive affirmation over something your entire body is telling you it doesn't believe. So if you spend $100 and immediately feel your stomach tighten, you don't need to say money flows to me effortlessly 20 times while secretly panicking. You can simply become curious and ask, oh, interesting, what did spending that money just mean to me? Maybe your body associates spending with danger or irresponsibility or losing control or the fear that there won't be any more. Or maybe you notice certain spending actually creates expansion because it feels aligned, planned, or generous, or deeply valuable to you. The goal is not to label contraction as bad and expansion as good. The goal is to finally become conscious of the quality that has been quietly accompanying your financial behavior. The second thing I want you to do is look at the programming that taught your system that what money means in the first place. Think about the financial reality you grew up around and ask yourself what you repeatedly saw, heard, felt, and watched people do. Was money discussed calmly, or did everyone become tense when bills arrived? Did you hear things like, we can't afford this, money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy? You have to work incredibly hard for money or save everything because you never know what could happen. And maybe nobody taught you anything about money, but you watched one parent spend impulsively while another parent worried and criticized or tried to control every dollar. And those experiences become part of your initial programming because your mind and body are learning what money means long before you consciously decide what you believe about it. Then look at your current behavior and see where the old programming is still repeating itself, because this is where awareness turns into accountability. Maybe you grew up watching people panic whenever money was spent, and now you make plenty of money, but still tense up every time you spend it. Or maybe money was unpredictable, so today you obsessively check your accounts even when you were financially okay. Or maybe spending was how your family celebrated and soothed themselves, so now you automatically reach for spending when you want relief. And you don't have to shame the pattern or immediately eliminate it. First, you just need to recognize, oh, this makes sense. My system learned this. Then you can ask a more powerful question. What do I want money to feel like in my life now? Maybe you want it to feel peaceful instead of urgent, intentional instead of restrictive, or joyful instead of guilty. And that emotional quality is the frequency that you're practicing. And every time you earn, save, spend, receive, or make a financial decision, you get another opportunity to practice that new frequency through the way you think, the way your body responds, and the action you choose to take. Because ultimately, I don't think the goal is to never feel nervous about money again or to walk around pretending every purchase feels amazing. The goal is to become awake enough to recognize the operating system that is running underneath your financial life and start participating in it consciously. Your thoughts, emotions, body, actions, and physical reality are constantly communicating, and every financial moment gives you information about the quality you are practicing. And you can absolutely want more money while also learning to experience the money that is you already have differently. And you can be responsible without living in fear, and intentional without becoming controlling, and ambitious without making your current life constantly feeling like you need more. And maybe that is one of the most practical forms of manifestation, not just creating a bigger number, but becoming someone who can meet money with more clarity, trust, gratitude, joy, and choice. So, okay, thank you so much for watching. And if you would like to work with me, check out my links in the YouTube homepage. Bye.